It is not a substitute for professional medical, psychological, or therapeutic advice. If you're struggling with substance use or mental health concerns, please consult a licensed professional. Any names, characters, or events described are illustrative and not based on any real individuals. Picture this: you're sitting at your friend's barbecue, holding what should be a harmless margarita, when suddenly your heart starts pounding like you just ran a marathon. Your chest tightens. The world feels like it's spinning. You laugh it off, but deep down, you know something just shifted forever. That moment changed everything for Sarah. A 28-year-old marketing manager who thought she had it all figured out. Today, exactly 1 year later, she's sharing the incredible transformation that happened when she replaced her nightly alcohol with something completely unexpected. Sarah used to think she was the definition of high functioning, crushing deadlines at her marketing job, hitting those quarterly bonus targets, always showing up for friends and family. She had her life together, or so she thought. But there was this nagging feeling, like she was living her life through a fog. Every evening followed the same ritual. Come home exhausted, pour a drink to decompress, maybe two, if it had been a particularly stressful day. It wasn't a problem, right? Everyone did it. Wine o'clock was practically a cultural institution, but that panic attack at the barbecue was her wake-up call. As she sat there, trying to calm her racing heart, a thought crossed her mind that terrified her more than the physical symptoms. What if I've been numbing the exact signals that were trying to wake me up? The next morning, Sarah made a decision that seemed impossible at the time. She was going to quit drinking. Not forever, that felt too overwhelming, but for now. She told herself she was experimenting with clarity, a phrase that somehow felt less intimidating than getting sober. But here's the thing about removing something that's been your go-to coping mechanism. You're left with this gaping void. Sarah realized she had about 2 hours every evening that she used to spend with a glass in her hand, scrolling through her phone or watching Netflix in a hazy stupor. She needed to fill that space with something, anything, or she knew she'd cave within a week. Sarah remembered how much she used to love reading before life got too busy. She decided to start small, just 15 minutes before bed. She set a timer, put her phone in another room, and opened a book she'd been meaning to read for months. Those first few nights were rough. Her brain felt restless, almost angry. It was used to its chemical reward, and here she was, asking it to focus on words on a page instead. But something magical started happening around day 10. The fog began to lift. Sarah started tracking how she felt each morning, rating her energy, clarity, and confidence on a scale of 1 to 10. In the first week, she was hovering around a 5 or 6. By week 3, she was consistently hitting 8s and 9s. Her sleep transformed first. Instead of that restless, artificial sleep that comes from alcohol, she was experiencing deep, restorative rest. She'd wake up feeling like she'd actually recharged, not like she'd been hit by a truck. Then came the mental clarity. Ideas that had been buried under layers of brain fog started surfacing. She began making connections at work that impressed even herself. Her creativity, which had been dormant for years, started flowing again. But the real game changer was what happened with her reading habit. Those 15 minutes before bed gradually expanded. She found herself reading during lunch breaks, listening to books during her commute, getting weirdly obsessed with learning, as she put it. Reading became her new high. The dopamine hit she used to get from alcohol was now coming from absorbing new ideas, gaining insights, and feeling her mind expand. She realized she had been trading her intellectual growth for temporary numbness. Sarah discovered books that completely shifted her perspective. She read about the psychology of addiction, about how alcohol manipulates your brain's reward system. She learned about neuroplasticity, how your brain can literally rewire itself when you give it the chance. The changes weren't just mental. Sarah started taking photos of herself every 2 weeks, not for social media, but to document her transformation. The difference was startling. The puffiness around her eyes disappeared. Her skin cleared up and started glowing. She looked younger, more vibrant, more alive. People at work started commenting. "You look different," they'd say. "What are you doing?" Sarah would smile and say she was just sleeping better. But inside, she knew it was so much more than that. Of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were moments, usually around 6 p.m. on a particularly stressful day, when every cell in her body screamed for a drink. Sarah developed strategies for these moments. When a craving hit, she'd grab a glass of water instead. Something about having a glass in her hand tricked her nervous system just enough to break the automatic response. She'd ask herself, "What am I trying to avoid right now?" Usually, it was stress, anxiety, or some emotion she didn't want to feel. Social situations were challenging too. Friends would ask why she wasn't drinking, and "I'm experimenting with clarity" became her go-to response. It was honest without being preaky, curious without being permanent. As months passed, Sarah realized something profound. She hadn't just quit drinking, she had started feeling her emotions more fully. The anxiety she'd been numbing was actually trying to tell her something important about her life. The stress she'd been drowning every evening was a signal that she needed better boundaries at work. For the first time in years, she was truly present in her own life. Conversations felt richer, experiences more vivid, challenges more surmountable. She wasn't just surviving her days anymore, she was actually living them. The reading habit created a compound effect in other areas of her life. Books on personal finance inspired her to finally tackle her debt. Reading about psychology helped her understand her relationships better. Self-improvement books motivated her to start exercising regularly. It was like her brain had been running on low battery for years, and suddenly someone had plugged it into charge. Everything worked better: her memory, her decision-making, her ability to focus on complex tasks. Sarah realized she had been operating at maybe 50% of her capacity without even knowing it. The person she thought was high-functioning was actually just highly numbed. Today marks exactly 1 year since Sarah's last drink. She's not the same person who had that panic attack at the barbecue. She's sharper, more creative, more confident. She's gotten 2 promotions at work, paid off her credit card debt, and deepened her relationships with friends and family. But perhaps most importantly, she's developed an unshakable trust in herself. She knows she can handle whatever life throws at her without needing to escape into a bottle. That confidence radiates into every area of her life. Sarah's transformation didn't happen in isolation. Her friends started asking about her reading recommendations. Some began their own experiments with clarity. Her sister decided to cut back on her own drinking after seeing the changes in Sarah. This is the beautiful thing about personal transformation. It's contagious. When you start living at your full potential, you give others permission to do the same. If Sarah's story resonates with you, here are some practical steps you can take today. Start with just 10 minutes of reading daily. Set a timer, put away your phone, and let your brain breathe. Choose books that challenge you, inspire you, or teach you something new. Track how you feel each morning. Rate your energy, clarity, and mood. You'll start to see patterns and notice improvements you might otherwise miss. When cravings hit, whether for alcohol, social media, or any other numbing behavior, ask yourself, what am I trying to avoid right now? Often, the thing we're avoiding is exactly what we need to address. Consider your own experiment with clarity. You don't have to commit to forever. Just commit to discovering who you are when you're fully present in your own life. Sarah's story isn't really about quitting drinking, it's about choosing growth over comfort, presence over numbing, and potential over settling. It's about realizing that sometimes what we think is helping us cope is actually preventing us from thriving. We live in a culture that constantly offers us ways to escape ourselves through substances, through endless scrolling, through staying busy. But what if the most radical thing we could do is simply show up fully for our own lives? Your brain is capable of incredible transformation. Your capacity for growth, learning, and change doesn't diminish with age, it just needs the right conditions to flourish. Maybe those conditions include removing whatever has been clouding your clarity and replacing it with something that feeds your soul. Sarah often says that reading became a keystone habit that helped her rebuild her life. But really, she saved her own life. The books just gave her the tools to do it. The question isn't whether you're capable of this kind of transformation, you absolutely are. The question is whether you're ready to start. Your future self is waiting on the other side of that first brave step. What will it be for you? If this story inspired you, hit the like button, subscribe, and comment below with your biggest takeaway. Let's grow together.